if you guys have heard about Foundry before, Foundry is also one of the lead sponsors of this event. So please welcome up Kevin.
All right, morning everyone. Decent turnout for 8 a.m. So what that tells me is either you guys are really passionate about Bitcoin mining or I peer pressured and guilt tripped some of you guys into showing up. Either way, I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you guys about Bitcoin mining. So one of the things I think is really underappreciated and understated about our industry that I absolutely love is a collaborative nature. And oftentimes you'll find that the best actors are those that are the most friendly, the easiest to work with, and the most transparent. There's definitely a sense of community and a feeling that we're all in this together, and we're still in these earliest days. It's us against the world. So with that spirit in mind, I'd love to take this opportunity to go behind the curtain and tell you a little bit more about our company, Foundry Digital, how we were formed, why we came about, some of our missions and goals, the different services and strategies we deployed, and how we can potentially work together moving forward. Before I dive into Foundry Digital, I want to talk a little bit about our parent company, DCG, short for Digital Currency Group. DCG's always had a foothold and a specialty in bringing institutional adopters into the Bitcoin and crypto ecosystem, and we've made our mark through digital asset management in Grayscale, financial services in Genesis, and even news and media in CoinDesk. And DCG also operates as similar to a VC, where they've invested in over 180 different portfolio companies. But the one thing that was missing, and the one thing we really want to break into, was the infrastructure layer. So Foundry was formed at the end of 2019 to help empower decentralized infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I'm referring to the base layer protocols and mechanisms of proof of work and proof of stake. So that was the origin of Foundry. Before I dive into proof of work side, which is the heart and soul of our company, we do have what we call Foundry Labs, and that focuses on proof of stake and all things that are non-mining related. And similar to the proof of stake industry itself, it's still in its infancy, and it's in a fast-growing environment. And we actually have our booth here with some of our staking engineers, so if you're interested in learning more about that side of the business, feel free to stop by later this afternoon to chat with some of us. All right, now on to the good stuff, the Bitcoin mining side. So on the proof of work side, when we set out to bring institutional adoption to the Bitcoin mining space, we wanted to bring more legitimacy, credibility, and transparency. And part of that is combating some of these narratives in FUD, right? Some of that FUD, one of the prevailing theories that's been around a long time is that, oh, Bitcoin mining is controlled by China. So much of it is centralized and concentrated in China, from the design of the ASICs, the manufacturing, the deployment of miners, and ultimately when the miners come online, even where they point the hash rate at the pool level. So at the start of 2020, we leveraged our balance sheet and our capital to make a big bet to bring a lot of miners and ASIC machines in North America. So if you guys recall at the start of 2020, the coronavirus had ravaged not only traditional markets, but especially the crypto markets. And in an industry that's incredibly capital intensive, we felt we were well positioned and we were uniquely positioned to bring interest and capital into the space to move everything forward and to get miners out of China into North America. Our company is based out of Rochester, New York, and we're proud to be based out of the US. And to be clear, when we talk about bringing miners out of China, this isn't about anti-China, it's about anti-centralization, right? A more decentralized network is a more secure one. It's more distributed, it becomes more valuable, and anything that's more valuable, more secure, the value appreciation is felt across our industry, and all boats rise with the tide. So we set out to offer equipment financing with all these ASICs we were bringing in at the start of 2020. We worked closely with the manufacturers, our good partners at MicroBT and Bitmain, and we helped them even address some of the US-China trade war tariffs by growing their volume in their overseas manufacturings in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and Thailand. And by the year end of 2020, we actually financed nearly 50% of all the latest generation equipment coming from Bitmain and MicroBT, the S19s and M30Ss. And with our financing, we were able to help accelerate the growth and leverage our balance sheet and help these miners grow that much quicker. But it's not only about helping the miners and these individual entities, it's also about helping the infrastructure layer and the other hosting facilities that are here in North America. The easy thing for us to have done at the start of 2020 was actually to hog all the ASICs machines for ourselves and to self-mine with proprietary mining at 1 or 2 sites, like a Compute North or a Core Scientific. And we love them in their facilities, but that wouldn't have moved the industry forward too much if we'd only worked with 1 or 2 large players. So to date, we've actually worked with 23 different hosting sites and 17 different providers, and that number continues to grow. Because part of helping the ecosystem out is not only helping the miners, but the facilities themselves. At the start of 2020, there's a lot of old depreciating equipment, some that were unprofitable, some that were needing refreshing, and there were even sites that had empty shelves, which is a rare sight today, of course. But we wanted to make sure that we were helping these facilities as well. And as the mining economics improved over time in the past year and a half, we offered up a lot of these machines that we're hosting for financing to help them grow and improve their economics, and even bring new customers in for their facilities. So speaking of newcomers and new customers, we also wanted to address that need as well. So we spun up Foundry Advisory Services. We think that over time, and we see it with more and more of these institutional players that are entering the space, the new entrants are going to be the sovereign wealth funds, the nation states, and the large energy companies, because they have such a competitive advantage with access to cheap electricity, scale, and we want to make sure that we're there to help guide them with proper advice and consulting to make sure that they can navigate this very tricky ecosystem. Unfortunately, the Bitcoin mining landscape is also often very opaque and it lacks transparency. There's a lot of language and cultural barriers, and there are some bad actors too. Oftentimes, if a deal sounds too good to be true, it usually is. So we want to make sure that we provide guidance in networking. We leverage our experience, our track record, our experience, and our network, to help newcomers in the space not get thrown off course and to fall into any of these pitfalls or obstacles. So now that we've kind of established how we're helping bring miners into North America, getting them online, and when the hash rate comes online, we also want to address the pool layer. Ultimately, much of the network was also centralized at the pool layer in China. Over 90% of the hash rate was pointed towards Chinese pools, and we wanted to provide an alternative that was US-based, that also offered stable, reliable payouts. So we're very happy to share that at the start of this year, we launched Foundry Usa Pool. The USA is in the namesake because we're very proud to be Rochester, New York based. And part of building a mining pool that's targeted towards institutions is offering something that's not only secure, reliable, and transparent, but also can provide stable, reliable payouts through FPPS methodologies. The FPPS payouts, it allows for miners on our pool to have steady, reliable, expected BTC rewards for their hash rate, regardless of whether the pool is lucky or not. And I think that's a big piece of making sure the industry becomes more mature, is flattening that expected income. Another reason we decided to go into the pool business was also to fight the narrative that Bitcoin's bad for the environment and the Bitcoin's boiling the oceans, creating hot tubs out of lakes. So with our mining pool and our different partners and our customers and clients, we're taking this data to refute and fight that FUD, because we've noticed that the facts and the data is largely on our side. There's a lot of initiatives in our space, and we're here to support those initiatives with the data that we see at the pool level. There's been great research that's been already put out, and our numbers back that up, that Bitcoin mining, the total power consumption is less than 0.1% of all the electrical consumption in the world. And of that power consumption, the energy mix is either renewable or stranded or otherwise wasted energy. But once again, it's making sure that the facts get out there and we can combat those narratives. So to recap, Foundry and how we've enabled proof of work system, especially in North America, we've debuted our financing services to help bring miners and to leverage our balance sheet and capital to grow faster than they otherwise could on their own. We've deployed some of our proprietary mining and self-mining with many different sites. We've offered advisory services for institutional newcomers and those that want to be successful in their journey down this path. And we've also launched our mining pool. So that's how we got here today. And ironically, one of the first narratives we set out to combat, where mining is centralized in China, that's largely been solving itself in the last 2 months when China's cracked down so hard domestically on their mining operations. Over 90% of the Chinese hash rate and hosting capacity that was online has now been shut off, and the bottlenecks have now shifted from ASIC procurement and supply chain to sourcing open capacity. So we're here to help advise and work with our colleagues over in China to bring their miners over to North America or other regions. And the reality is we can't conjure up open capacity overnight, and nothing can be built overnight and very quickly, but we can certainly point in the right direction of the proven actors of the space, those that have built and executed on time and are reliable counterparties. And one of the regions that we're obviously looking at is North America. And the irony is that over time, that centralization risk and that narrative may now change to mining is centralized in North America. But I think that's an easy narrative to refute as well. China and US operate on very different bases. In China, things are usually mandated and regulated at the national level and then pushed down from the top bottom to local provinces. But here in the US, it is a republic and no different than Canada, where things are managed much more at the local, provincial, or state level, or sometimes even local counties. And you have jurisdictions like the Kentuckys, the Wyomings, and the Texas of the world that are incredibly supportive of Bitcoin mining. That being said, I still think we've reached this crossroads where I think it's also an incredible opportunity to help enable other regions of the world. Previously neglected or underdeveloped Bitcoin mining sites and regions in the Southern Hemisphere. Sites that didn't make sense to run air-cooled miners because it's either too hot or too humid. So we're talking the South Americas, the Africas, the Southeast Asias, and even Australias of the world. We think that by tapping into new technologies, our alternative to air-cooled machines, that's going to unlock these regions. And when you have 50% of the network shut off in recent months, I think these previously neglected or under-prioritized regions, they deserve a second look, right? They do have plentiful electricity. They have supportive and reliable governments and stable environments to work within. It's all about how do we provide an alternative solution to air-cooled miners. So I know the manufacturers here are working hard at it, and some of the vendors here are working very hard at immersion technology. And at Foundry, we're very bullish and we're very keen on working together with you if you're in that space to help push that technology forward. Immersion solutions have been around for quite some time, but the large barrier of entry has always been on the CapEx side. But we think with this urgent need of hosting capacity and infrastructure and the opportunity to help decentralize and work in newer regions, we think that immersion technology is going to help unlock that. So yeah, as you can see, the mining space is constantly changing. There's a lot of different pitfalls and obstacles along the way. Just in the past year and a half, we've launched a bunch of different products and services, made a bunch of new friends and partners along the way. And we want to make sure that if you're a newcomer or if you are already an existing player in the space, that you also work with reliable counterparties. And hopefully you guys can find Foundry Digital as one of them. If you have any questions, we do have a booth near the front of the entrance. And if you're interested in joining the mining space or learning more about it, we're also looking to hire. So make sure you stop by and chat with us later today. Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys, give it up for Kevin and Foundry.